Hello, my name is Gisela Pink and I'm here with my co-host Julia Lisk. Welcome to Intimate Leadership.
Thank you for listening. Please support us by subscribing to our Intimate Leadership channel using the link below. This episode is brought to you by Transformation Space. More about that later.
We're here today with Alaina MacGregor. Did I say that right?
You did.
Oh, fantastic. Julia, tell us a little bit about Alaina.
Alaina transitioned from a successful 16-year marketing career to charity work, driven by a desire to give something back. She has been involved in community projects with a passion for history. Alaina directed an award-winning heritage project in 2007. In 2010, she began volunteering in disability sport to make a difference, later becoming the Chief Executive Officer of British Blind Sport in 2011, where she's been instrumental in its growth. She is vocally against injustice, publicly condemning racism and bigotry in response to recent riots. Painting is a new passion, so let's start painting Alaina's portrait.
Lovely. Great. We always prepare our episodes with a previous conversation just to get acquainted. And during our conversation, you shared quite a bit about your life and how you got put together, which is fascinating. And it also rings a bell with my own childhood. But I want to start there. Yeah. I understand that you had a traumatic childhood.
Yes.
I understand it was difficult. But you left your house early on, and you had a lot of support from your mom. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So there's myself and my siblings, had a very challenging childhood. And that was mostly because, I had a parent who was quite handy with his fists and not particularly kind with his words either. And I actually think words can hurt far more than bruises, if I'm
Absolutely.
honest. So I did make the decision early on just to take myself out of that situation as much as I possibly could. So I left home when I was about 17. It's interesting, isn't it? Because your childhood does shape you. But I met up with a friend from my childhood about 5 years ago, and she was talking about, she didn't know what was going on behind closed doors.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. No.
Nobody knows. Everyone sees the perfect family.
Absolutely. And we were like the perfect family. We were always well dressed. We were always, the most polite children on the street.
Of course.
We always had a little bit more. Both my parents, for whatever the faults, did actually in a material way look after us. We didn't have a lot. We grew up in a council house, but we were the only house in the street at one point that had a car, and everyone thought we were rich. I thought we were rich. But it was interesting, yeah. So I bumped into this friend about 5 years ago, and she talked about our childhood and some of her memories. And those memories were very different from mine, but it reminded me that actually some really good stuff had happened in my childhood as well. I think you become so overwhelmed with all the bad that, we were kids that were allowed to go and play out until the streetlights went on, and there was lots of kids in our neighbourhood, and there was lots and lots of good things. In terms of the not so good, that really has shaped me for who I am. And I could spend hours telling you in lots of ways, and I think I've had enough counselling to get me through that. But one thing I will say, and since I left home, is I'm very grateful for every day. I don't wake up in fear. Yeah. And I used to wake up in fear. I genuinely did.
I want to talk a little bit about fear, because I experienced fear myself, and it's very disturbing. And overcoming fear has been the biggest challenge in my life. Tell me, how has fear shaped you? So you left the house and with whatever was happening at home, and you started fending for yourself, which was very difficult at 17.
Oh, absolutely.
So how did you manage with your own fear, and how and when did you overcome that?
Well, when I left, I actually, for a time, made myself pretty much homeless. I'd gone to live with my aunt and my mum. My mum had moved in with my aunt as well, and my uncle and my cousins. And I felt, whilst it was a very supportive environment, there was a lot of different people's emotions happening. You know, our way of dealing with it, my aunt's teenage daughters having new people come and share their bedroom and stuff. So I took myself out, and I told my mum that I was going to be staying with friends on and off. But actually, in reality, I was at times sleeping on the streets. Oh. So, and the biggest fear when you're on the streets, for me, I can't say for others, I was actually going to sleep, because I was worried that somebody would attack me when I was asleep. So I found a tree that it's in Leamington called Jefferson Gardens. There's this big tree, I could take you to it, but I found a way of getting underneath the tree and sleeping under there. So there are times when I take my granddaughter for a walk now, or I used to take my daughter when she was younger, and I think, I lived under that. I lived in that tree.
Well, that tree protected me.
Yeah, that tree protected me. There was 2 homeless gentlemen at the time. You can't sleep in that park now. I think, you know, the law has changed and they lock it up at night, but they didn't used to then. And both of them were known as really down and outs in Leamington. You know, it was great unwashed. People would walk past them. They were lovely to me. They used to say, "You go and have a sleep, love. We'll keep an eye out for you." And they were just wonderful. So I'm always grateful to others for however much they can help or not help you. But also, I don't turn my back on anybody, because there but for the grace of God go all of us.
Yes.
And I feel quite strongly that we're only a few steps away from, you know, perhaps being in that situation again. I spoke to my daughter last night, actually, not about this, and I said to her over the phone, "Don't forget your blessings." And she said, "What do you mean, Mum?" And I tell her a lot. And I said, "Well, you've got a roof over your head, you live with your partner, you've both got a good job, you've got a healthy baby, you have got more than most of the world."
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
gratitude is so important.
Absolutely. And I feel that I'm so blessed. You know, terrible things have happened. I lost my mum 3 years ago, which in the most horrific circumstances, and I'm still dealing with that, and I think I'll be dealing with that forever. But I was with my mum. I was able to be there, and I had a relationship with my mum. And
Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned also about your mum's strength that kept you going.
Yeah.
You know, and I believe that you are of Dutch origin.
Yeah.
And in broad terms, Dutch people are quite strong-minded and very vocal.
Yeah.
I have quite a few Dutch friends. And tell me a little bit, what was it like, and how do you felt supported by Mum?
Yeah. I think, if I'm honest, I resented Mum for a while after it all happened, because I felt, you know, why did you stay with this man? Why didn't you take us out? And I didn't understand then that the world then was very different to the world now. There wasn't women's refuge. There wasn't, and there was also, you know, there wasn't places to go necessarily. And even if she had gone to my wonderful grandparents, there was that stigma of divorce and, you know, running away. So it took me a long time to get over that resentment. So in my 20s, I had quite a difficult relationship with my mother.
Yeah. You're talking about yourself, and my upbringing was not far out.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Like you say, if you unpeel what as women we go through and what we survive. Yeah, it took me a long time to have a peaceful relationship with my mum. What I did notice in her later years was how she wasn't going to be defeated. She met my stepdad. He ended up, you know, out of the frying pan into the fire in a different way, you know, hurt my mum. But instead of curling up in a ball in her early 60s, she joined a choir, she joined a knitting group. She, you know, used to go on a holiday with a group of friends. She'd go with family. She abseiled down the Humber Bridge when she was about 63 to raise money for charity. And I'm like, that's my mum. You know, that's the woman that I'm shaped by. Yeah. And, you know, when she did get ill towards the end, she fought it all the way. She fought it to the point where the doctors didn't think that she should be surviving to the extent that she did. And, you know, in a way, I was almost like, Mum, let go. You need to let go now. But she was strong. She was a strong woman.
Did you manage to make peace with Mum?
Yeah, I did. I did make peace with Mum. And, yeah, it was just really hard, you know. Yeah. When, I haven't told many people this, but when I was at the hospital saying my goodbyes, her heart was pounding and I had my head on her chest and I was holding her hand. She couldn't speak at that time. And I just said, Mom, I can hear your heart and this is my heart. And I put her hand here and you made this heart and I want your strength to come through to me. And that was really you know, that wasn't just the only thing I said, but, you know, I walked away knowing that was the last time I was going to see my mother. My brother actually had said, look, you're too distraught, you know, and she
Time to go.
Yeah, it's time to go.
Yeah. Now moving on, because otherwise we're both going to cry. How has that shaped you as a mum?
As a mum?
Yes.
I'm quite fierce as a mum.
Yes.
My daughter would say I'm very protective. She calls me the helicopter mum. I'm always above going, what's going on? Are you okay? I'm all kinds of mum but one, okay? And I've never birthed a child, although I am a stepmum, and I've been a foster mum, and I'm an adoptive mum. And I've also hosted students, so I've been what's called a house mum.
Yeah.
So, and
Mum by choice.
Mum by choice, yeah. And I think for me, raising a girl was really important to me, and raising a girl to know that nobody, going back to your fear, should instill fear in you, because you are capable of walking away, you are capable of confronting, and you are capable of saying, that's not important, and I'm not going to give it the size that it thinks it needs. I'm going to shrink it. Because the best thing to do when you're in fear really is to say, actually, what am I fearful of? Okay, if I confront that suddenly stops it being like an ogre into a little thing. It's the only way I can describe it is, do you remember when you're little and you start primary school and you walk in and you think the classroom's massive and the chairs are huge? If you've ever gone back and you think, oh my God, they're so tiny.
So small, yeah. Tiny chairs.
What was I frightened about?
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit like with my dad, actually.
It's a conversation.
Yeah, you know, he was an ogre. He was this giant in our heads. He was this scary individual. And you know, the last time I saw him, when I walked down the parade once in Leamington a few years ago, I just saw a tiny little man, and I thought, why did you frighten me? I don't know why I was frightened, and I know why, because of the imbalance of the relationship at the time. But
it's the fear of the unknown as well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, from my point of view,
Yeah.
I've been quite fearful in my life for different reasons, and it's the fear of what you don't know, once you actually do it.
Yeah.
Because, well, why was I frightened of that? As a child, I was always sort of fearful, shy, wouldn't do anything. So I was frightened to say boo to a goose. So feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then it's a case of that empowers you, and then one step at a day, one day at a time.
Yeah, and it's, you get suppressed by fear until you don't.
yeah.
Yes.
And you become resilient and you become understanding. So that leads me to another question. And I appreciate if you don't want to answer it.
No, it's fine.
Did you make peace, or have you made peace with Dad?
He asked to see us when he was dying, and so I went to see him, and I was pleased that I did. For me, what I thought was really interesting was he talked about himself. He didn't talk about the pain that he had, put us through. He just talked about him and his needs, and I walked away thinking, okay, so you've not changed.
And he wasn't aware of what he was doing.
No, not really. And sometimes people, and that's the other thing, is you have to offer forgiveness. I talked a lot with an aunt of mine who, bless her, she's passed away. She was a very strong woman, and also my mum, about even before he passed away, 10 years ago, I was like, I just forgive him in my heart, because actually sometimes when somebody's so ignorant to what they're causing, then actually you have to feel almost quite sorry for them. I don't forgive him and want to be his mate, but I also think, do you know what? Having hatred in my heart for somebody, or anger, is not healthy for me. It's not going to change them.
No.
So, and it's also a way of understanding. For me, it was a journey to understanding why somebody in their right mind would do such a thing. Why would they do that? And the more I understood my dad and heard his story and heard where he came from, the more I came to terms with what happened without condoning it.
No, of course.
But just getting it, like, I get it. It's exactly.
And we don't know their history, the tapestry of their history. We don't know what they've gone through. And that, again, that doesn't condone or excuse bad behaviour, but sometimes it shapes people in a different way. I mean,
So what would you say, how has it shaped you in your relationships?
Well, interestingly, I met my husband when I was 21 and he was 31. He was a divorcee with 3 children. And I look back now, and he's quite a big guy, my husband. He's, quite a tough guy. He used to be a bodybuilder. And I look back and I think I can see all the signs of why I was so attracted to him, because he was a good dad and he was a good looking man. But importantly, he had this physicality to protect.
To protect you, yeah.
So
Like a teddy bear.
yeah. And actually, it's interesting you say like a teddy bear, because he is quite tough looking. He's ex-army. He's got a scar on his nose. I'm sure he'd love to tell people that was from some big fight. It wasn't. He had a sinus operation. But, he can look a little bit tough, but he is a teddy bear. And, he's the person, and he genuinely does have to walk out of the room if there's an advert from the NSPCC or anything to hurt with children. And I'm the tougher one. And in fact, our daughter always says, yeah, my dad's scary. Wait till you meet my mum. But it shapes my relationship. I'm the grizzly bear. Yeah. I'm the mama bear. That's what she calls me. And actually, my favourite animal is the polar bear. And the reason why is because apparently they're very fierce mothers. Yeah. And that is why I love polar bears, which is
animals in general are quite fierce as mothers.
Yeah. Apparently, polar bears will do anything to the death to protect their young, and I would do that for anybody that I love, but particularly for my daughter
and your granddaughter
and oh my god, yeah, I would just kill for her.
So now that you've become this resilient young lady, and with an interest in marketing, tell us a little bit about how you used all those powers that you've created for yourself for the greater good.
I didn't, and really until I was probably, and I'm 56 now, I probably didn't until I was about 45 even know what I wanted to do with my life, because I think you're so busy surviving. In fact, I've often thought, shall I just write a book called Busy Surviving? Because you meet other kids at 14, 15 and they want to be a nurse or a doctor and everything. And I was thinking, I just need a roof over my head. I need someone to look after me, So I kind of fell into marketing, but I'm very streetwise because of what had happened to me, and I can spin a good yarn in order to protect myself. I remember walking into the DSSS office when I was 17, I think, and saying to them, you need to put a roof over my head. And they were like, oh no, you don't have the paperwork, blah, blah, blah. And so I just sat on the floor and said, I was so fed up of being on the streets, and I just sat on the floor, and they said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, you need to give me some money so I can get a roof over my head. And they said, well, we're going to arrest you because you, and I said, go for it, I'll have a roof over my head. Do you know what I mean? And all these men that were queuing up in the office, these older guys were like, go on girl, you go for it. And they gave me a cheque for £47. I'll never forget that. Well, it was a gyro actually, and I went to the post office, cashed it, and then went straight across to what was called Sandu Estate Agents. I don't even know if they still are here. And then I found bedsit, and that's how life started. So going back to my career, I've always been that kind of resilient. How do we make this work? And marketing was good for me because what I love about marketing is that you actually help shape people's ideas. They don't know they want that bottle of perfume until you've almost put it into their head.
It's consumer behaviour.
Yeah, it's consumer behaviour. And I'm fascinated by human behaviour, just generally. So I sort of fell into marketing and realised I was really good at it. But I remember I'd been going for about 16 years and I was working on a tyre brand. And we'd been asked to go to a shoot in Marbella, a photo shoot.
Tough.
Yeah, I know, it's really hard. and it's because the photographer said it was really good light. It was November, and I'm sure it's just because he wanted a holiday. So I traipsed along, and basically the tyres were in a row on the beach, and they'd been sort of pushed into the sand. And then we had this very slim girl lying in them. And it looked very sexy. So I'm there in my heels, because in those days, you dressed with your clients always in the heels and a suit. So my heels were sinking in the sand. I was freezing cold because it actually wasn't as good as you thought. It was nice light. And in between takes, we were trying to warm this girl up because it was freezing and she was semi-naked. But more importantly, I thought she looked like she had anorexia. Now in the photos do put 10 pounds on you, she looked like a slim girl. To me, she looked very unhealthy. I was ringing my mum. It was very early with the mobile phones, and I rang my mum. I was like, what are you doing today? She said, I'm making a pixie outfit for what was one of my nephews for his Christmas play. And I just thought, I don't want to be here. I don't want to condone this. And actually, I want to go make pixie outfits. So I went home and said to my husband, I can't do this anymore, and I need to do something different.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were looking for something that would make a difference in the real world.
Yeah.
With real people, not tires and naked women.
No, not consumer based at all. No.
Yeah, so the commitment to making the world a better place.
Yeah.
You shared also about being an advocate for injustice and empowering the world and dealing with, a more balanced and equitable world. Can you share a little bit about how you started in that journey?
Yeah. So I went on. It took me about 6 months to find the right role, and then I gave up, a big salary, company car, and expense account, and literally had to get on my bike and cycle. But then I started working on a project locally, which was helping disadvantaged communities. I did that for 7 years. Then I went into the heritage sector, which was a passion of mine. Again, helping people to understand their heritage and etc. And then I ended up doing some voluntary work at British Blind Sport. And again, when you say, how did I have that career path? I did that because I'm like, I've got some spare time and it's around the corner. I didn't realise that for me, disability in sport would just become a passion that, I'm 15 years in and I absolutely love what I do. And I wake up every day really, really pleased with it and wanting to do more. People will say, oh, you've achieved so much. And I think, gosh, if I was on a ladder, I'm only about 3 rungs up and it's a long ladder. But yeah, in terms of injustice, I remember being that child and not being able to speak out and being frightened to speak out. And now I won't allow that for myself, and where I see it, where others are being suppressed, I'll be damned if I'm going to be part of that.
It's powerful that you saw as a child that it wasn't acceptable to speak out, but now people like you have actually changed the way that the public think. So we are empowered and unable to speak.
Would you say that in a way you're kind of coaching yourself?
Yeah.
A younger self?
Oh yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. No one's ever said that to me before, but yeah, I think that's exactly what I do. I do reflect a lot on my own development. Where am I going with this? What do I need to think about that? I think going back as well to your injustice thing, I genuinely believe that there are 3 paths in life. There's just my view, and there's the path of least resistance, which most people are on. Most people are on that path. They get up every day, they might give to the occasional charity, they think they're doing good, and actually they're good people. Then there's the path which is quite destructive. People that are prejudiced, racist, never want to really help the world. And then there's the most difficult path of all, which is the one where you want to make change. And by that, you come against resistance, you come across hurdles, you come across challenges. It's hard, but my goodness, the rewards are so much better.
I call it the path of taking a stand.
Yes. Well,
so when you stand for something and you align who you are, your actions, your thoughts, your beliefs, everything towards your stand, that makes a difference, and that transforms the experience in the world.
Yeah. And isn't it wonderful when we take a stand, we learn from those others that are the quieter voices. So, for example, I think when I learn from when you meet other cultures, we're so ready to say, we don't like migrants, we don't like refugees, we don't want to do this, we don't like black people.
There's a lot of that conversation.
There's a lot of that going around. I have lots of different people in my life that I consider friends or acquaintances from all walks of life, and they teach me about their culture, they teach me about their religion, they teach me about their food, their music. And I just think, wow, if I was ignorant and, what's it called when horses are blinkered, I wouldn't learn that. I'm only here once. I want to absorb everything. No.
It enriches our lives as well.
Absolutely.
Since I was a little girl, I've been fascinated to think what it would be like had I been born somewhere else. So I would picture, and I remember being 12 and having this conversation with myself, thinking, had I been born in Australia, what would I be doing right now? Had I been born in Morocco, what would it be like? And every time I travel, I generally engage with the local culture more than the touristy bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm generally interested in what's it like for other people, especially women.
Yeah,
what's it like to be somewhere else?
Oh yeah, and I don't have that same thought process as you, but there's many times I've thought, gosh, if I'd been born into a different culture, some of that behaviours that we had as children would have been accepted or been kept under the carpet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was so blessed that I had my grandparents who had a wonderful marriage, who were very open. My grandfather's Dutch, my nana's background is from Ireland. We are such a mixed bag as a family, loads of children, loads of different people, and we are just, a friend once said to me, joining your family is like joining the Corleones. You just know that you're going to be loved and accepted.
And protected,
yeah. And that enabled me to have a lot of, whilst I was raised in this country, and this country is amazing, but actually part of that Dutch culture, that openness that comes from the Netherlands, was definitely, and straightness was definitely filtered through into us as children, but not in an obvious way. I don't think I remember thinking, I think differently to the kids at school or anything like that. It was just it was a natural channel and culture within our family. We love to party, we accept people. It's just like, come on in. That we've got, I don't know, I think I've got 63 cousins and aunts and uncles at the moment. We breed like rabbits. But we've got disabled people, we've got people of colour within our family, we've got adopted people in our family, but they're our family, and we would do anything for each other. That's a blessing, isn't it?
Oh, that's love and acceptance.
Absolutely. We love love. That's what I used to say to my daughter when she's little. We love love.
I would say I love people.
Yeah.
You've been fighting injustice and you end up with the blind. Tell us a little bit about the blinds in sport. What is it that you do? You became CEO of the company. Tell us a bit about that. And especially what I'm interested, it's times of the Paralympics and the Olympics in Paris. I want to hear if you had any take on what happened in Paris, and if you watch any, and if you pick something, any experiences from what you saw.
It's a very good question. I watched lots of the sport. I'm a real spectator. I can't imagine that I do an awful lot of sport. I'd rather get my paintbrushes out, but I do watch a lot of the sport. And I'm very excited about the Paralympics because I know a lot of the athletes. And obviously I'm involved because our organisation is a member of the British Paralympic Association. And some of those athletes, how often they started their career at British Blind Sport. We do something called Have a Go Days, where you can come and try out a sport. And if you're good at it, we'll signpost you into the right direction, or not even if you're good at it, if you enjoy it. And then in time, some people become very good and go on to have a career. For me, I think what gets me up in the morning is that if you lost your sight, and we're blessed that we haven't, then it is so isolating. And what I always say is sport is the springboard for change. It's not about the sport for me. It's about the fact that by going to sport or participating in sport, then you are getting healthier, you are getting fitter, you are making friends, you are becoming more confident in yourself. It can help your spatial awareness. It actually helps you to feel better about you, but also it helps others to see that you've got a value in society.
There's something to overcome.
Yes, there's something to overcome.
And it's being included.
Being inclusive, absolutely. We did a project called See My Voice, which is about helping young people who are blind or partially sighted to find their voice and using sport as the vehicle. And part of that was getting them voluntary roles in different sports. And a very famous cricket club down in London had said, well, we don't have disabled volunteers and we've never had anybody under the age of 18. And we were like, well, we'll come down and show you how to do that then. So we did go down, not me, one of the team went down and showed them how to help guide somebody to give them a role. Do you know, the ECB, the English Cricket Board, now say, we have learnt from that. We embrace disabled volunteers because we see the value that they offer society. So when you say, are there things that are important to me, that's the sort of thing that's important to me. That's one of my prouder moments. Seeing people like Libby Clegg, who started her career with us, win gold, is amazing. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, to be honest, I have such a sore throat by the end of the Paralympics because I'm always screaming at the telly.
Unlock your leadership potential with Transformation Space. Get an exclusive deal on our behaviour report with a personalised coaching session. Discover your strengths, understand your unique behaviours and learn strategies to excel. Normally £150, now just £75 for listeners. Don't miss out. Transform your leadership journey today. Contact Afshan at transformationspace.co.uk.
It's the small things that are huge to me.
And there's so many sports that blind people participate in the Paralympics. One of them that caught my attention was
goalball. Is specifically for people with sight loss.
That I found that incredible, is playing football with blinkers.
Well, no, there is blind football and then there's also partially sighted football. So goalball is like you're on a court and you have like a really large net, and then you have 3 people on the floor, and then 3 people on the other side, and you have this ball full of ball bearings where you have to throw it at the other net to try and get it into the goal, and people use their body to stop the ball going in. Now, can you imagine that you've got no vision and this ball is coming at you at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, full of ball bearings, and you're having to use your body? I have to say, of all the sports, and I've said this before on another radio interview once, I was like, it's really my favourite. I shouldn't have a favourite sport, but I'm fascinated by it.
It is incredible.
Yeah, it's an incredible sport. It's an incredible sport, and so brave to get on there, and so strategic. It's a strategic sport, and that's what I like about it.
It's skillful.
People have got to work together, and you've got to be relying on each other.
So the team strength must be
the team strength is
so
amazing.
Communication is essential.
Communication is essential. It's an amazing sport, and our women's team have done really well. Our men's team are doing really well. And
so did they use the same size ball?
Yes.
Just out of interest, because men are bigger and more robust.
But yeah, goalball is a really good sport. Slalom skiing, using your guide to tell you where you're going. That's incredible. That's incredible. Diving, swimming. I was at an event once, it wasn't a Paralympic event, and a young gentleman was brought to the edge of the pool. He had no vision, and somebody said, right, you're at the deep end, when the whistle goes, you blow. And I thought, well, if ever there was a leap of faith, if somebody told me to dive headlong into a space that I couldn't see and just go swim, I don't even know if I could get over that bit before I even started the swimming.
Yeah, but I think that in a sense, that's also going back to you and your life. That's a bit of overcoming injustice.
Yeah.
Something, like it's unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So they got dealt a tough card.
Yeah.
And they are overcoming it with excellence.
Yeah.
And that is you.
Do you know what I always say? Is that blind people help me see the world differently.
I bet they do.
Yeah, they do.
I bet they
absolutely. Do. Yeah, I have some wonderful people in my life who live with sight loss, who see the world in a different way from me, and are able to give me so much insight into how the world works for them. I'm always learning. And that's great.
It's like the people who can see are actually blinkered.
I think we are, and I think that sometimes we forget how lucky we are.
Yes.
In so many dimensions.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, you get dealt the cards you get dealt with in life, and that's it. Then what do you do with them?
Yeah.
I was having this conversation in a coaching session, and the conversation was, okay, so you've got lemons. Life has given you lemons. What kind of lemonade are you going to do? There's so many things you can do with lemons, but what is your choice?
Mine would be G&T.
Yeah, of course. Happy limoncello. So, Alaina, you mentioned before a very loving and deep connection with a tree in Leamington as part of your protection and your life, your home. And you also mentioned your dog. Is it Sterling?
Sterling.
Yeah, so your baby, and enjoying the walks in the park.
Yeah.
Do you think that nature contributes to your healing?
Absolutely.
Do you have a connection with nature?
100%. I struggle with our winters because I cannot get out as much as I want to. I'm not outdoorsy as in I'm sporty, but I love to be outside. And I know this can sound really sad, but I actually just love sitting on the grass. I feel really grounded. So like yesterday I saw my granddaughter for a bit, and even though I had white jeans on and she was crawling because she's not walking yet, I just immediately just sat on the grass. My daughter was like, "Mom, you're gonna get your jeans stuck." I don't care. We got to touch the earth. We've got to feel what's around us. I'm not a tree hugger, but I will go up to a tree and give it a stroke and just feel the different bark and all that sort of stuff. And it's beautiful. The world is beautiful. Let's open our eyes and see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's having the connection with nature. I mean, it's also having the connection with children, being at their level.
Yeah.
So that sort of transitions into mentoring. So what sort of mentor do you think you are?
Well, you'd have to ask my team that. What I like to do is help people look for positive solutions. So I had a girl who worked with me who I'm still very good friends with. She's lovely, and she used to always, when she first started for me, she wasn't like this by the time she finished, but when she started she always panicked, and she'd come in and go and I used to go, "Okay, has anyone died?" She'd go, no. And I go, okay, that's a really good start. So now tell me what the problem is. So, and then I'd say, so how do you think you should handle that? So I want people to work on challenging themselves, just like you said before, my own coach, is like coach yourself into thinking about how do I get through this? The other thing is I have some amazing people that work with me, the team that I've got now, the team that I've had in the past, and people have always said, oh, you've got great people, but they've moved, somebody might have moved on, she's moved on. And I go, yeah, but her wings, all my job is to do is help her attach her wings properly, and then I want to see them fly. And if I've done my job properly, they don't need to stay at British Blind Sport. They need to move on to whatever's next. Great if they're coming back and having a relationship with us and friends, but actually mentoring isn't about holding on to that person. It's actually helping invest in that person and empowering them to be what they want to be in life.
If there's one legacy you hope to leave around work or your personal journey, what would that be?
That's quite a big question. One, to go down that difficult path, but the one that's amazing. And it is hard sometimes. And the other one is just remember how blessed we are. Like I said to you earlier, people, you said we forget what's around us. We try to remember our blessings when something bad happens. We go, oh, so-and-so died, but, we're going to be okay, blah, blah. No, remember your blessings while you're living it, while you're living that moment right now, because that's the greatest gift of all.
Absolutely. So you are an advocate, quite a strong belief in female leadership.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I think women offer so much to the world, to the workplace. We are the natural leaders in our homes. I don't know about yourselves, I don't know what your setups are, but if we're going on holiday to Norway next week and my husband won't know where we're going, what we're doing, where the tickets are, have we got the insurance, has he got the where's the passports, and that's because we lead.
He turns up.
Yeah, he just turns up. Yeah, usually packing the wrong stuff as well, but bless him. But we are natural leaders from a very young age, and in the workplace we can offer so much. I think the one thing that I've learned in the last few years is that what women don't do is self-promote. They just don't.
Definitely.
They're so busy trying to nurture and look after everyone else that they don't stand back and go, hey, guess what? I'm really good at this. I've interviewed some men for roles and they just tell me they're amazing. And then they might start the role and I think, well, you're not quite what you thought you told me you were. Women, on the other hand, are quite self-deprecative. Is that an actual word? Yeah, self-deprivation. And then I think, gosh, you're so good at this and you didn't think you could be. Now, I don't know why we're like that. I don't know what our makeup is.
Sometimes we actually think that people will notice, but we've actually got to tell people,
yes,
look, I'm doing this.
Yes.
I think that it's part of the culture we live in.
Yeah.
Live in a world of men, and it's run by men, and that has not been always the case.
No.
I mean, I was reading yesterday about Egyptian times.
Yeah.
Women in ancient Egypt were revered as superior and more sacred than men, being considered the source of life and wisdom. How did we go from that to the whole narrative of being submissive to and subjective to men?
Yeah. I don't know how we got there. I just think that, looking at our world as it currently stands, right? When you saw those riots the other day, I would say 90 to 95% of them were men.
99% women.
Yeah. And
both sides.
Both sides. Yes. And if you look at what's going on in the Ukraine, what's looking on in Gaza, this is being led by men. And I said to my daughter once, there was something on the news when she was about 10, and it was about a war. And I was watching it and I said, it's really sad. And my daughter said, I don't really understand, Mummy. And I said, I was trying to explain to her what it was. And she said, why don't they just talk to each other? And I just thought, why don't they just talk to each other? And actually the simpleness of a child, a female child, why don't we just talk to one another? And we don't do enough of that in our society. And yet women are so good at it. Yeah. I mean, people say, women, you never shut up. Yeah, we get to the root of the problem, though, don't we?
I think the other thing is it's not just talking, it's actually listening.
Yeah.
Which women are very good at and men aren't.
Yeah. But I don't know how we've had that shift. Is it a need for men to feel bigger, better, stronger, and that's just pushed women down? I have to say there's some wonderful men out there as well.
Oh,
I'm not into men bashing.
Absolutely.
You know, there's some amazing men out there who are very supportive and want to be equal. We're not equal in certain areas. You know, you look at the Olympics recently, and you know, a man can punch harder than a woman.
Yes.
We know that.
Sure.
We won't go into
it's a
that
physical
but
strength.
rather than try and look at our differences, why don't we go back to that, you know, that celebration of different cultures? Why don't we celebrate our differences? Why don't we say, hey, guess what? You're better at this, so you get on with that bit, and I'm better at this, rather than trying to fight
How
each
can
other.
we contribute to each other
Yeah.
and enrich life
Yeah.
as it is without having to fight for belonging or
Yeah.
participating?
Yeah, and I'm very lucky. I've got a wonderful marriage where we do that. You know, there's certain things that he'll do in the household that I don't do, but, you know, because we just got that nice balance. But it's a shame that we can't emanate that to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to wrap up here.
Okay.
It's been a really insightful and moving conversation.
Been a pleasure.
I really enjoyed chatting with
It's been
you,
lovely to talk to you both too.
and I feel very connected. Are we sisters?
I think we are.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for allowing me to get into your life. I know that certain conversations are not easy, and you've been very gracious about sharing with me.
We want to thank Transformation Space for their support today. And that is the power of intimate leadership. Thank you for listening.